Namaskaram. Welcome to Mana TV live lesson on pedagogy of physical science teaching. So, we are discussing in this pedagogy about the evaluation system. Everyone knows that present evaluation system so called as the continuous comprehensive evaluation and familiar as CCE. Last episode we discussed about few of the concepts about the CCE. What are the consequences, influences to introduce the CCE, and what are the advantages of CCE and how it is implicated in the present system we discussed. Now, we are discussing about co-curricular areas. In the CCE system, we are evaluating children in two aspects which provides an integrated output. The first one is curricular areas in the languages and non-languages, and the second one is co-curricular areas. In the co-curricular areas, one of them is work and education and ICT. You know that we have to respect our work, at the same time we will give the quality education. Not only quality, we have to incorporate equity and equality, empathy. These three are very important for education. Education should provides for any student social ethical values also. Recently, we shifted from antiquated education to digital education, that is in the form of ICT. ICT, you know that what is meant by ICT, everyone knows it. The abbreviation of ICT is Information Communication Technologies. In information communication technologies provides a digital era for us. Now, the total world converted as a global village. So, I will give some interesting and important statistics which was released by UNESCO. There are 7.4 billion people in our world. Out of 7.4 billion people, nearly 4 billion people are access the internet facilities, and they are using the cell phones. Now, you can understand the implication impact of ICT. Okay. Only 1.1 billion people are using high speed internet. The reason is lack of ICT tools and technologies. So, ICT tools and technologies are very important, you have to know about it. You know that ICT era changes from antiquated ICT tools to cutting-edge ICT tools. Generally, the telephones, of course, landline telephones, televisions, radios, all will be called it as antiquated ICT tools. Previously, ICT is using radio lessons, okay, and some recorded lessons which are transmitted through televisions. Now, we are using smartphones, iPhones, KN projectors, okay. Are you understand now? So, digital classes through SoftNet, State Institute of Educational Tools, okay, and FABs, we are using FABs, and one more flipped classrooms, okay, and we are preparing virtual labs. So, all comes under the ICT tools. Recently, our Honorable IT Minister introduced the digital classes. The digital classes are incorporated in the academic calendar also. Every day we have the digital classes. The reason for it is we have to digitalize the content. Every concept cannot be explained on chalk and duster. So, something will be represented in a visual form, okay. And by using this advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, and by using the robot technologies, we can explain each and every concept with a more conceptual clarity. When the children have the conceptual clarity, then only you can understand anything. For that reason, we are using ICT. Here, in work and education, the preparing various models and articles is one of the main aim. Skill in making use of tools and materials of goods. I have a smartphone, I have the iPhone, or I have a KN projector, but having those tools is not important. At the same time, how to use it, that skill is very important. So, we have to learn how to make use of these tools and our material, our goods, that is very important task. Making use of services of persons, arts, crafts and other productions, means here art and culture, crafts, these are necessary. Some children is very good in arts, some children is very good in creative thinking, some children are very good in preparing various models. So, all are very, very important. So, this work and education plays a vital role in the classroom transaction. By using ICT tools, we can make importance of that, clear. And one more thing here, so we have to follow the things ethics and values. This is a very, very important. Discriminatory knowledge is very important. Equality and brotherhood. So, this is already every day we are doing prayer. So, we are Indians, we are brothers and sisters, means not by lips, we have to pray this by wholeheartedness. So, that will give the equality, and life skills are very, very important, clear. So, by using life skills, the people can survive anywhere, and observation of human values, moralities and human rights. So, every children, so they are not only good at curricular areas, they should know all these things, then only the person or the student becomes an integrated person. Okay. Now, come to the other areas. So, we are going to discuss about types of assessment. So, types of assessment, already I said, in the system we adopted two kinds of assessments. One is called formative assessment, second one is called summative assessment. The first one is formative assessment. Formative assessment means, you know that formative assessment means it clearly it is a formative. It should be happens in a formal way. The formative assessment is an assessment conducted during the process of teaching. It is through observation of student responses, student engagement, student notebooks, assignments and other written works. So, very, very important here. The formative assessment, so it should be conducted in a formal way, just now I said. And so, actually it covers the observations of student responses, how the children is responding in the classroom, what is its participation, how he is engaged in the classroom transaction, and how he is writing, how he is maintaining the notebooks, and whether he is doing the assignments or not, whether he is performing the projects or not. So, we will see in all aspects. Here the projects, in especially physical science, we are maintaining a laboratory record. We will perform the activities, how he is performing the activities, what is his participation, what are his observation skills, how he is generalize the things, how he perceives the things, that is very important. And the written works. So, written works is one of the tool in the formative assessment in physical science. So, he has to write the answers of the exercises which are given in that. He has to write the meaning of keywords, and he has to learn what you have learned. All these are given in the textbooks. He has to write those things on his notebook. For writing these answers on the notebook, we will consider the written works. So, written works also will be honored by marks. Okay. So, now the formative assessment will be conducted by the teacher during instructions. Previously, we have the unit test. Now, it is modified as a formative assessment. Unit test means here we will give a schedule for conduction of the unit test, and we will give a paper pencil test or paper pen test for 25 marks, and totally based on rote learning method. But in the formative assessment, we are evaluating the children, we are assessing the children by tools, and the paper pencil test is one of the tool in this formative assessment, and the teacher only will prepare the paper. Means the teacher has the liberty, freedom, he has to prepare according to the standard of the classroom. So, every children can write it, and it should not be in a specific time. So, because we are continuous comprehensive evaluation, means continuously when the teaching classroom transaction is going on, so he has to conduct the assessment. That is a very, very important. The teacher observes and record the children progress and as well as the learning gaps. He has to identify the gaps, and he has to adopt remedial teaching. That is a very, very important. Without remedial teaching, there is no assessment. So, this is very, very important, clear. And the formative assessment is an assessment conducting during the process of teaching. It is through observation of student responses. Now, coming to the next one, FA is an ongoing assessment. Throughout the unit, the purpose is to improve the instruction and provide feedback to the student. Formative assessment is a check for understanding. Formative assessment helps us to distinguish between teaching and learning. This is the most important. The purpose of this formative assessment is to improve the instructions and provide feedback to the student, because the children will participation is more in the formative assessment. So we are observing the written works, we are observing the laboratory performing skills, we are observing the project, how he is performing, how he is perceiving, all these things means here you are understanding the conceptual knowledge of the children. Formative assessment helps us to distinguish between teaching and learning. So, here the teacher is a facilitator and learner is a child, okay, and it is going on child centeredness. See the textbooks. First you have to understand the philosophy of the textbook. The philosophy of the textbook is, so here the child centeredness. Okay. Children, by reading the total textbook, he is able to understand all the concepts. No definitions is given. For example, if you show fan, what is fan? One children may say that it is an electrical equipment which converts electrical energy to wind energy or mechanical energy. One person will say. Other person will say as it is an electrical equipment only. One more say the electrical equipment which converts electrical energy to just mechanical energy. Like everyone will say the definition in a different way. These are not the definitions, these are explanations. So, for that reason we do not want to make some framework. In the frame then only the children has to answer, it is not correct, but very important task is he is able to say the explanation by using the keywords, scientific terms. That is the most important. The teacher has to observe whether the children understand the keywords or the scientific words, whether he is explaining with respect to keywords or not. This is very important. So, and the next one is some of the main features of formative assessment, we will see it now, is diagnostic and remedial and in the form of oral, written and performance. These are most important. We are diagnose the children performance and we are identify what are the drawbacks. That by identifying the drawbacks we will adopt a remedial teaching. Okay. So, here the assessment may be in the form of oral or written or the performance based. The oral means here just we are observing through projects, okay, how oral presentation will be, whether he is explaining, whether he have good presentation skills. So, we observe it and we will assess that. And the written works, and you know that by conducting paper pencil test and by observing the notebooks, all these things will be comes under the written. And the performance means every day he will perform an activity and he will perform some activities in the laboratory also. So, how is performing? So, whether you have a good concepts and about the hypothetical things or not. So, we will see all the performance of it, okay. And it makes the provision for effective feedback, So, previously we are conducting only one test. Through the test we can't give a good feedback, but we are observing in by using so many tools. The one is laboratory method or laboratory record. Through laboratory method, how is interpreting, how is diagnosing, how is analytical thinking, everything will be observed through the laboratory method, correct. So, in the laboratory activities the student participation is more. Sometimes he innovated the things, he discovered the things also, is a possibility for that, okay. And so, we will see in an effective manner and enables teachers to adjust teaching to take account of the results of assessment. So, here the teacher should have a good assessment skills, because he is observing everything. So, his written skills, his performance skills, his oral skills, like everything he is observing. So, he has to adjust his teaching strategies, that is very important. Already we discussed the various teaching methods and teaching strategies also. You know that already we said lecture method, lecture demonstration method, laboratory method, project method, analytical method, synthetic method, problem solving method, like so many methods of teaching already we discussed it. So, what kind of method we are going to use it? So, whether we are going to mind mapping or brain mapping or conceptual mapping, so or drawing a diagram, like which strategy, whether it is a group activity or individual activity or perform the activity in the laboratory. So, like he has to adjust his teaching to and take an account of the results of assessment, that is the most important. And he has to recognize the need for students to be able to assess themselves and understand how to improve. So, here two kinds of assessment, one is called self assessment. The children has to assess himself, how he is and what extent he is able to perform the things. And the second one is just in the peer group, he is able to assess the rest of the guys in the group. And the same time the teacher assess each and every children individually at the same time on the whole as a class. Am I correct? So, these are very, very important. The teacher has to identify or recognize the needs for students, because science, for example, what kind of strategies generally they are required. Some areas it is very difficult to understand. For example, if you want to say some areas of optics, okay. So, whether it is a virtual image or real image, and whether it is a magnified or shortened. So, if you want to know all these things, where it was going to be applicable, everything you have to explain in a need based. So, that is the reason recently we conducted the training for the teachers on need based. So, where the where of course we consider as a student teachers as students, and in which areas they feel difficult and which areas they feel difficult to transact in the classroom. Okay. For that reason already we prepared some modules as a laboratory things, and we are giving to the each and every school for 6th and 7th one module, 8th and 9th one module, of course, and 10th one module. Totally 3 modules were given to the each teacher, each school, are 2 sets, of course, actually 3 sets, 2 sets are given to you that. So, by using this the teacher can understand what is the need of student. Okay. These are the very, very important. Now, coming to the next one is builds on students prior knowledge and experiences in designing what is taught. Okay. So, builds on students prior knowledge and experience in designing what is taught. So, very, very important. So, if any chapter, so before you are going to know that chapter, already I said the chapters are written in one kind of philosophy. First the notion of the chapter was given, how it is connected with the daily life situation, what is the necessity of the chapter for introducing the in this particular academic standard. So, like the notion will go on, after that conceptual explanation is there, some activities are there. So, here so we have to observe what is the prior knowledge, previous knowledge, and what are his experiences in designing what is taught. So, that is the most important. Okay. Coming to the next one is encourages students to understand the criteria that will be used to judge their work. So, encourage the students, it is a very, very important. We should not scold the children, and we have to encourage the children how much he understand that, what is the understanding criteria for that. So, the teacher in position to judge their performance. Okay. And it offers an opportunity to students to improve their work after feedback. So, where the children are doing mistakes and how to improve that, the teacher has to give, because he is a facilitator. Just now I said he is a facilitator. The children only participate in all these things. So, coordination, cooperation. Okay. So, there is a cognitive domain will be developed. So, like the things will be developed in the formative assessment. The formative assessment helps the students to support their peer groups. Okay. The reason is, so we are performing individual activities, we are performing group activities. Generally, we will give a project as a group activity only. In rare cases, we will give the individual activity also. 4 or 5 students will make as a group, and they will investigate the things according to the hypothesis, and they will submit their project individually as a oral presentation. So, here the coordination, the support, respect between all the people of course will be improved. So, that is a very important thing, because he is a social human being. So, the supporting system is very, very important. Okay, formative assessment in assessment for learning and assessment as learning. This is a very, very important statement. Formative assessment is assessment for learning and assessment as learning. So, maybe you already understand this. So, we are conducting a test or we are assessing the learning process. At the same time, this assessment should be a learning process. From this assessment, the teacher learns so many concepts. Okay. So, what are the drawbacks? How to improve them? Okay. And how to remedial those things? All these things comes as a learning part. Every day he will search for some new resources, new activities. Okay, he has to incorporate different strategies. So, this assessment gives a learning process. So, we can say it is a very, very, very important statement, assessment for learning and assessment as learning. Okay, now coming to the special learning outcomes and standards are reference points and grade levels may be the benchmark for reporting. This is assessment of learning. Are you understand? So, I use one word, call it as assessment of learning, assessment as a learning and assessment of learning. What is assessment of learning? The special learning outcomes and standards are reference points. Okay. So, we will make some reference points. So, if the children will got from 91 to 100, we are providing 10 grade points. From 81 to 90, now we are giving 9 grade points. Like we are giving grades and we make some benchmarks for reporting. Okay. So, if you get more than 34, he passed in the examination. Less than that, it is not fail, but you will get it as E grade. Clear? So, already I said, so if a children got 92 marks, another children got 95 marks, one more children got 100 marks. There is no difference because 1 mark or 2 marks should not give a difference of that. So, he is in the range between 91 to 100, that will be given for 10. Unfortunately, for some consequences, so he lose that, but you should not punish him, we are giving 10 points. And another one is SCA measures the students' competencies. Next one is you called summative assessment. In the summative assessment, we are assess the children for competency levels. Okay, student competency, this is the most important. It gauges the students' progress towards course or grade level goals and benchmarking. So, it is very, very important. So, generally we will conduct a formative assessment for every 2 months as a period. So, for example, June and July will be the first formative assessment, August and September for the second formative assessment period, November and December for third formative assessment period, January and February for fourth formative assessment. In the month of October, we will conduct summative 1. In the month of March, we will conduct the summative 2. So, now we can proudly announce that, so these formative assessment and summative assessment and their tools and CCE, what we are implementing is adopted by now CBSE also. Everyone says that CBSE we copied from CBSE, no. Just compare, in CBSE previously there are 2 summative assessments, summative 1 and summative 2, but summative 1 like a semester system, means what is the syllabus for summative 1, after completion of that, so that will not be considered for the summative 2. But in our present system, so in summative 1 some of the concepts will be considered, and summative 2 will consider all the chapters of the present academic year. Clear? So, they are following the same, and we are giving a formative assessments. So, 4 in the formative assessments we are giving some tools. As per tools we have to assess the children, that is a very, very important. So, there we are observing what are the outcomes, what are the standards of the children, what is the special learning processes observed in the formative assessment. In summative assessment we observe the competency of the children. It gauges the students' progress towards a course or grade level goals and benchmarking. This is the most important. Okay. So, maybe you understand the difference between a formative assessment and a summative assessment, and the formative assessment should be in a formal way. So, we will observe the performance of the children in 4 aspects. What is his performance, what is his written works, and what is its oral presentation, okay, and what is his presentation. So, all we will check it in various tools. Especially in physical science, we will use laboratory activities or record, and written works, projects, and paper pencil test. These are the 4 tools which are used in the physical science as a formative assessment tools. Okay. So, and we conducted in the month of January and February, of course, these 2 will be considered as a 4th formative assessment. June, July, 1st formative. August, September, 2nd formative, November, December, 3rd formative. It means it is a period, and the teacher can assess the children as per using all the format any one of the day or continuously, but there is no restriction that in particular day only they have to conduct the formative assessment of paper pencil test. Is it clear? This is the most important. Okay. Now, we will discuss a very clear manner what are the techniques and tools for the formative assessment. The children's learning process is continuously checked and monitored through formative assessment. Different kinds of tools and techniques will be used to observe and record the different types of behavior, as these are the follows. Here the children participation and reflection. So, very important. Daily observation and oral work. We will ask the questions, we will observe the answers, we ask the children to read aloud, and we will observe the participation in group work, and we will discussion of questions, exercise given in the lessons, and end of the lesson. So, group discussion. So, here actually, this children participation and reflection is modified now, and it is given to the laboratory activity or laboratory record. Okay. So, we have to award 5 marks for it, but you have to conduct for 10. That is very important. So, especially in physical science, so you have to conduct of course conduct this laboratory activity, or you have to observe the laboratory record for 10 marks in a particular assessment. Is it clear? That is a very important. So, the teacher has to give some laboratory activity, the children has to perform the activity whether individually or group, and finally he have to say the outcome, and he has to record the total activity in the laboratory record. So, for that the teacher has to record for 10, but he has to post it for 5 in his record. Very important. He has to conduct by using this tool for laboratory activity or laboratory record for 10, but he has to post marks for 5. Very important. Now, come to the next one is of course written works. Next one is the written works. Written works means he has to write the total exercise question answers, very important, and it is given as per academic standards. As per academic standards given, the children has to write the answers for it. This is the first one, and keywords also given in the boxes. So, he has to write the meanings of or explanation about the keywords, that is very important, and he has to write some activities also there. According to the given instructions, he has to write everything that will be given for 10 marks, given 10 marks, but the teacher has to post it for 5 marks. Very clear. So, he has to award 10 marks for that, but he has to post 5 marks. Maybe you know that what is the reason is when you consider 5, again 2.5, or these parts will come for avoid this generally instead of 5. So, he has to consider for 10, but he has to post it for 5. That is a most important. Now, coming to the third tool is called projects. Okay. So, very important one. So, here he has to write the project for each formative assessment, one project. Here internet support is not necessary. Already in the textbooks only the projects are suggested. Okay. By considering low cost and no cost material, the children can perform the projects, and by observing the already for teachers already we give the lab records also. okay, what kind of lab records, lab activities they have to perform, that's total instructions also given. In the next episode I will discuss what kind of projects is very important, which books support to them, everything I will discuss it. So, here the children will be given individually or a group, the projects will be given. So, he has to collect the data, that is a very important, okay, and he has to collect the data, that is a very important, and he has to discuss those things, means he has to interpret it, he has to analyze, he has to tabulated the total information, finally he has to write the outcomes. And what are the precautions required if it is some lab activity? So, he has to write the precautions also, all those things. Finally, he has to observe, he has to give the oral presentation. So, for that 10 marks will be given. So, next one is a slip test. Actually, the teacher has to conduct 20 marks slip test by considering summative assessment examination, because it gives a practice to them. Okay. So, summative examination means, you know that summative examination is as a process. There are two weightages here. One is called academic standard weightage, other one is called nature of questions weightage. So, nature of question weightage means here we have 4 kinds of questions. One is very short answers questions, 1 mark questions. Second one is short answers questions, 2 marks questions. Third one is long answer type questions, 4 marks questions, and fourth one is multiple choice questions. So, generally, and it is very clear, I am not saying objective type questions, purely multiple choice questions only. So, there is no fill in the blanks, there is no match the following, there is no true or false. So, when you are preparing for slip test, you have to follow these things all. Okay. So, when you practice the children in this format, so you can conduct a slip test for 20 marks by considering 1 or 2 academic standards, but not more than that, and the question should not be linked. So, giving one question, there are 4 or 5 sub questions, it should not be in the same form. So, he has to give 1 question or 2 questions, that is more than enough. So, you are testing 1 or 2 academic standards, not more than 2 academic standards. That is very important in order to considering the summative assessment examination. This is a very important, and it is a casual unannounced test in the classroom period. The teacher writes the questions on the blackboard and the children write answers in the notebook. It is very clear, it should be casual and no prior intimation and unannounced test. Okay. So, you should not say already we are habituated to within 2 days you are going to write your unit test, or we will give the timetable to the children. That era is eradicated. Now, we are following the formative assessment, means so the children should not feel as examination as a burden. He should feel that it is a part of their classroom transaction. Okay. So, then only we can understand the understanding levels of the children. Otherwise, he will by heart it. Again, we are giving importance for the rote learning and memory based learning process. Is it clear? Very important. The examination should be casual and it should be unannounced. The children written works, just now I said, the children written works means the teacher has to correct the notebooks, observe the homeworks and observe the assignments. He has to give 10. So, finally, you have to post for 50. 10 marks for laboratory record and 10 marks for written works, 10 marks for project and 20 marks for slip test, totally 50, but he has to post it for 20. That is very important. So, he has to conduct for laboratory record 10 marks, means he has to post it for 5. So, 10 marks for written works, he has to calculate for 5 marks. And 10 marks project he has to calculate for 10, and 20 marks slip test he has to convert into for 5, means simply divide with 4, then how many marks he will get for 5 marks he will do. So, 5 marks for laboratory record, 5 marks for written works and 5 marks for project and 5 marks for slip test, on the whole it is 20. As a very important is, so the 20 marks you are conducting the 20 marks examination, it has to post it for. Here the very important thing is, so the science marks will be announced combinedly biological science and physical science also, correct. In the formative one, in the progress report, in the formative one, how many marks of course got for out of 20 has to post it in the for physical science, like biological science teacher also has post for 20, okay. And the formative 2 also he has to post for 20. Okay. Now we will consider of course 20, 20, 40, you have to divide with 4, so 10 marks for 10 marks, and biological science teacher also divide 40 with 4 for 10 marks. So 10 marks for from physical science and 10 marks from the biological science, he has to add it in the examination, because so there 80 marks, no? So simply 80 plus 20 for 100 marks. This is a very very important one. Okay, every time they have to rounded those marks. For example, in the first formative in the physical science subject, the children got 17.5 marks and 17.8 marks. We have to round it to 18 marks. They only have to round it. And when you add this from physical science and from biological science, again you have to round it that 20 marks, and we have to add for summative assessment. It is a very clear announcement. We have to follow the same thing, because after selection of from this examination, we will be appointed as teachers at various gurukulas. So you have to follow it. You should feel that it is not only for the preparation for examination, it is a training for you for the upcoming examination, of course for your career. That is a very very important. Clear? Okay. Children written works, correction of following work of the children may give ideas how children are learned and what are their gaps. This is a very very important. So through the written works you can assess the children, whether the children understand it, what is his logical reasoning and what is his perceptions, everything, where the gaps are there. So we have to identify those things. Okay. Now coming to the next one is notebooks, new just classwork and homework. Children completion of exercise given at the end of the unit lesson are their own assignments, portfolios, children diary, etc. Correct? Okay. So now the tools and techniques of summative assessment. Already I discussed tools of formative assessment. Now we are shifting to summative assessment. Summative assessment should be based on the written and oral test. This is simply written test only. We are following a written test. Written test is call it as a pen and paper test. We are conducting for 40 marks. Okay. So physical science examination will be conducted for 40 marks. So this is a very very important. Already I said. So we are conducting this examination for 2 hours 45 minutes. 2 hours 45 minutes is a time. So there may be you identify previously the examination for 2 hours 30 minutes. We increased in the CCE system for 2 hours 45 minutes. The reason is the first 15 minutes is used to read the total question paper. This is the most important. The first 15 minutes use it for the reading of the question paper, and the rest of them of course 2 hours 30 minutes will be for writing the answers of it. Here the very important, the children has to write the answer incorporating the keywords. That is very important. The questions must be qualitative, open-ended, analytical in nature, drawing conclusions, giving reasons, evaluating and interpreting in nature. They must discriminate the children based on their intelligence and creativity. So these are the very very important. Yet the questions must be qualitative and open-ended, analytical in nature, and drawing conclusions also very very important. It has to give the reasons for it, and evaluating and interpreting in nature. That is very important, and some appreciation about the nature also, appreciation learning of physical science also very very important. And he must discriminate the children, okay, based on their intelligence and creativity. So the tools and techniques of summative assessment, you know that. So summative assessment will be conducted through written test. Of course, you call it as pen and paper test or pen and pencil test. Whatever it may be the name, it is simply be named as a written test. So we will give the examination for 2 hours 45 minutes for 40 marks. Duration is 2 hours 40. The first 15 minutes used to read the total question paper. This is very important. We are giving importance for two aspects. The weightage given in the blueprint of the question paper will be two. One is academic standards. The second one is the nature of questions. We will give the importance for all 6 academic standards, okay, and there will be weightage. I will discuss when I am going to discuss about academic standard, what is the weightage for each academic standard according to the blueprint of physical science paper, okay, and nature of questions. So, we have 1 mark questions, 2 mark questions, 4 mark questions and half mark questions. 1 mark questions are very short answers questions and 2 mark questions are short answers questions, and 4 mark questions are essay type or long answer type questions, and half mark questions are multiple choice questions. The question number 1 to question number 7 is 1 mark questions are very short answers question. They have to write the answer within 1 or 2 sentences only, okay, by incorporating the keywords according to the given question. And question number 7 to question number 8 to question number 13 short answer questions, 2 marks questions. The children is able to write 2 or 3 up maximum 4 sentences for the answer. This is the most important. So, for question number 1 to question number 13 there is no choice. The children has to write all the questions. From question number 14 to question number 17 4 marks questions, essay type questions. In 4 marks questions there is an internal choice. We will give 2 questions 14A, 14B. The children has to write one of it. So, very important for the preparation of this question paper is, so 14A and 14B which will be given as internal choice, both should be in the same academic standard. This is the most important. Okay. The chapters may be different. One question may be asked from organic chemistry, one question may be asked from optics, no problem. But very important thing is both should be in the same academic standard, that is very important. In general, so internal choice also we are following, one from physics and one from chemistry is not, actually it is not given as a mandatory, but we are following that. If the 14A is from physical science, from physics, generally 14B also should be in physics. We have to note it as an important notice. So, very important, are you understand? So, 14A, 14B both should be from same academic standard, but different chapters. Okay. At the same time it is not a mandatory, but both should be from either from physics or from chemistry. In general 14A from physics and 14B chemistry, it is not a usual thing in following the present system. Okay. And the question should be qualitative. There is internal choice already I said, no? So, it should be qualitative and there is no more number of sub questions. In 14A is a combination of 4 or 3 sub questions, it is not like, because in 2015 March, so they are giving us a 14A. So, in 14 1, 2, 3 questions, one question from one area and another question from another area. So, that combinations of questions will not be considered. So, we can give very straight question as an essay type question. Okay, if you want to give one more question which is required to that from the same content, from same hypothesis what is given in the, for example, some resistances are connected in series and connected in parallel. Okay. Then what is, if the given resistance is given, if they are connected in series, what is the effective resistance? If they are connected in parallel, what is the resistance? And the third question is, if you want to get a required given resistance, effective resistance, how you are going to connect it, whether it is a series or parallel. Some are series and some are parallel, like the question may be. So, it is all the 3 questions which are given as a sub question should be interrelated. Otherwise, one question on resistance, one question on Ohm's law and one question from Gauss law, this like we should not give it. So, in general there is no sub question in a question, clear. This is the most important. So, for 14, 15, 16 and 17, 14 to 17 there is internal choice. And the next one is a separate paper, we call it as a part B, So, part B has 10 objective type questions which are purely multiple choice questions, clear. So, and the question should be qualitative, open ended. So, more ambiguity should not be incorporated, analytical and in nature and drawing conclusions, giving reasons, evaluating and interpreting in nature. They must discriminate children based in their intelligence and creativity. So, we have to give those, consider all these things for, okay. Then when to assess the periodicity, already I said we will conduct the examination. The academic year starts with a baseline test in the month of June. So, baseline test which is diagnostic in nature to be conducted at the time of beginning of the academic year to understand how far the children possess accepted competences to expected competences to follow the regular syllabus of the class. This is very important. Baseline test is the most important for any teacher or any children or for a school. So, generally for each class some expected competences will be there. The children is able to do this thing, the children able to perform is these like. Through the baseline test we can assess it, whether the children possess the required abilities and qualities for continuing this academic year for this standard or not. So, if the children is not up to the mark, then we have to conduct some remedial teaching for them. Then only the teacher can cope up these people who are not following this academic standards, then definitely they will come into the mainstream. That is most important. Recently we started a 3 hours program because children are coming as per Right to Education Act, with respect to 2 years we can give the admission for it. Okay, there is no detention system. For that reason mostly the children they are directly joining in 6th standard or 8th standard alike. And in primary education system also generally they are not getting the appropriate or required basic information, means they are unable to write some of them, okay, they are unable to speak properly with the grammatical nature, they are unable to perform the basic operations of the mathematics. The children directly enter into the 6th class, means here. So, if you explain directly the word problems to them, the children will not understand all those things. So, through the baseline test we have to assess the children how, now what is his level, okay. So, according to that we have to plan for different teaching strategies to make him into mainstream. That is very important. And next, in case of children do not possess the required basic competencies, a remedial teaching shall be planned by the concerned teachers. So, this was just now I said. A remedial teaching is very important after the school hours or the in between the school hours. So, they are maintaining the remedial teaching, then only the children can understand this. Now, formative assessment, already I said this is a part of teaching learning process. The teacher observes the performance of the children through questioning, observation of children, notebooks, assignment, class works, projects and children participation in the learning process, group works, all these things. So, here it should be highly formal, there is no prior intimation, okay. So, we have to follow all these things by through the tools only, okay. And I am giving a suggestion to you. So, for the slip test, do not conduct a slip test in a particular day, it wastes your one period. So, we are failing is a continuous process, means we are explaining one concept, that concept is over, out of 45 minutes just it is complete up to 40 minutes. So, 5 minutes is left. Do not make the children sit in lazy or do not spend for other work. So, simply ask the children write one or two questions on board and ask them to write it. Then the evaluation process will be over, correct. Like when you have time, when you need that, you have to evaluate the children, you have to assess the children at particular time, conduct the this paper pencil test. Like you have to conduct the examination up to 20 marks and you have to post it for 5 marks, clear. So, there is no specific format for paper pencil test in the formative assessment, it is a very important. And very clear, the project should be 4 for each subject, for each formative assessment 1 project. And a very important one is, so in a school there are 7 subjects. So, physical science teacher announced that this week we are going to conduct a formative assessment project, means next week other subject. Okay, like they have to distribute. If all the 7 subject teachers gave the project in the same week, the children cannot perform. That is the reason the ground level response for this CCE means, so we are giving more work for writing us, the teaching learning process is not happens because of not proper, lack of proper planning. That is a very, very important. The headmaster should coordinate all these things and they have to make it into meaningful, then only the CCE becomes as a successful evaluation system. The teacher has to record in the following months of formative evaluation against the given tools, observation, written works, projects and slip test. Here observations is modified as a laboratory record. Okay, the formative one, just now I said it is a duration from June and July, formative 2 August, September, formative 3 November, December and formative 4 January, February. This is the duration and generally you have to complete at the end of the July of formative 1, at the end of September you have to complete the formative 2, at the end of December you have to complete the formative 3, at the end of February you have to complete the formative 4. This is most important. Okay, and summative assessment is it's a terminal test, already I said. Yearly we conducted twice. One is of course the previous one in the month of June we conduct a baseline test. We ask you to conduct the baseline test for 25 marks, so they can conduct the baseline test. Recently we introduced the 3R system also. So that is first 5 periods of out of 8 periods in the timetable, the first 5 periods meant for the regular syllabi and remaining 3 periods of 3R. So one is for mathematics, one is for English, another one is the first language. Okay. So if the teachers are sufficient, they can divide into required groups, otherwise other teachers also has to support. Finally, they are going to assess and evaluate the total papers for each class and they will come to a conclusion that how many children having the required basic standards and how many children is struggling for getting basic standards. So they will be separated and they will be given a special coaching or remedial teaching for them. That is a very, very important. And the summative one will be conducted mostly in the month of October. So already I said the nature of summative one, and summative 2 it will be conducted maximum in the March. Okay. So for very important thing is summative one, for example, out of 14 chapters of one subject, or let us take a physical science subject. So out of 14, the first 7 will be conducted in the month of October for summative 1, but in summative 2 all the 14 chapters will be going to be evaluated. This is the most important note. Okay, the subject wise question paper should be developed based on the academic standards and its weightages. This is just now I said this is the most important. So academic standards is very important. We have to prepare as per academic standards. A very important note for one more is for you is no question will be given from the textbook and give questions from the available in the market. Okay, this is very important. So once if you want to give the question from the same textbook, the children are habituated to by heart, rote learning method. There is no possibility or scope for the thinking, logical reasoning, analytical thinking. Am I correct or not? So very strict, authentic authority of our government SCRT announced that no question will be given from the textbook. It is very clear. The teacher has to create some questions according to the standard of the class based on academic standards. That questions will be given in the examination. You should not be, it may be beyond the standards of the classroom, within the limits of the classroom standard only, but they should be incorporated with respect to academic standards. Clear? Okay, so who will assess? That is very important. The school based assessment by the concerned teachers. So when the examination is going on, so definitely the school will conduct the assessment. Of course, these all formative assessments will be the question papers and all the things will be prepared by the concerned subject teachers, and the physical science teacher has to prepare the paper pencil test for all the 4 formative assessments. And the summative 1 and summative 2 assessment papers will be in general prepared by the DCEBs, District Common Examination Board will prepare the question papers that will be supplied to all. The reason for this is even teacher also can prepare this question paper. The reason is we want to maintain the commonality among the paper, then only we can assess as an uniform. That is one of the reason. Clear? Okay, now coming to the rest of the things here, you know that grading, this is a grading is very important. So, 5-point scale grade, and now we are using 10 points the scale grade. From 91 to 100 it is a A+ grade. So, we will give it as a, instead of grade we are using that is points first, that is grade points. From 91 to 100, 10, okay. 81 to of course 99, like we are giving the information, that is clear. Okay. And so, we are using A, B, C, D and E grades in the present system. Who got E grade, the children will fail in the examination. So, if between 0 to 34 you will be E grade, 34 to 50 you will be D grade, 50 to 51 to 60 that is C grade, okay, 61 to 70, okay, 70 that will be B grade, B1, B2, like we will say A1 grades and A2 grades. So, this is the way to give the grading for it. And every teacher must maintain a register CC showing the progress of children against subject specific learning indicators over baseline. So, there are 3 registers. One is individual register for a children, okay, that is called CC register completely, and the second one is the teacher maintains for subject wise record and school wise record. These 3 records should maintain in that. Recording formative and summative evaluation details child progress card, this is very important. Every child completing his elementary education shall be awarded a certificate. Of course, it is you know this, all these things, and summative assessment record already show that. Okay, so, we have to record for each one. So, the most common thing here for each subject, of course, language, mathematics and mathematics of course not necessary, environment studies and sciences especially 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is very important. So, for science it is conceptual understanding, you know that. For conceptual understanding the weightage will be given 40%, academic standard is 40%, means 40 marks. For 40 marks examination 16, questioning hypothesis 10%, information skills 15%, reflection and contemplation, that is a social studies that comes in. So, like we are giving the awarding, that I will discuss it clear in the academic standard wise. So, anyway these academic standards are very important, and what is the teacher role? This is a very important. Developing competency based test items, question papers with open ended, thought provoking, application oriented questions and take up school based assessment. This is the most important, and diagnostic and remedial teaching is very important. They have to maintain the portfolios, and the teacher has to identify areas where the student needs additional practice, and he has to observe everything, and he has to facilitate for peer and self assessment. This is very important, and demonstrating the performance of the children in the SMCs, parents meeting. So, SMC is very important. He has to take the students performance at the even from the parents also, then he can assess the children in a comprehensive mode. And maintenance of CC register and the elementary education is very important. So, this is about continuous comprehensive evaluation. It is a very best method. You can assess the children in all areas in a comprehensive mode. So, it's a shift from rote learning and memory based to student participation, analytical reasoning thinking. So, anyway, so CC is one of the best evaluation system. It is already proved. Maybe you understand what are the different tools, what are the different assessments, and what is the different techniques we are using in the evaluating in the process of CC. Thank you for listening.